The answer is 41%.
Thank you very much. You're watching The Right Stuff. We're live on 5 with Michael Ball, Carol Malone and Stephen Gates. First, though, subject, I'll admit I'm completely out of my depth on this. We're asking if all this talk of climate change is a con. Talks of rising sea levels, gaping holes in the atmosphere, shrinking ice caps. Is it all no more than a load of hot air? Get it? No. Anyway, today's newspapers would suggest there is something for us to worry about. The Daily Telegraph claims this year will be the 5th hottest year since records began, while climate change experts warn we face a decade of soaring temperatures. And yet, a controversial writer called Christopher Booker, his new book called The Real Global Warming Disaster, suggests otherwise. He says the trend for global temperature has been down, not up, in recent years. And he quotes from former Nobel Prize winners, as well as former advisors to the UN. He says there is no less ice at the poles than there was 30 years ago, and that while sea levels are indeed rising, they're rising no faster than they have done for the past 200 years. It's not been a good month for the climate change camp. Email leaks from the Climate Research Unit at the University of East Anglia, we talked about this the other day, suggest that leading scientists have been doctoring statistics for years to make things look worse for the planet than they really are. Indeed, a Professor Phil Jones is under pressure to quit the unit, though he claims his comments about tricks have been taken out of context. And then, what about all this freak weather we've been having? Storms, floods, hurricanes, heat waves. Well, according to Booker, there have been fewer of these in recent times than in previous decades. They say that the flooding in Cumbria is so extraordinary, it only happens once every 1,000 years. So was global warming a cause last time? And then there's Al Gore's film, even that, The Inconvenient Truth, the movie, well, that alerted so much of the US to the supposed threats our planet is facing. Well, that film's come under fire as well. A school governor from Kent objected to the film being shown in schools because it was alarmist, he said, and contained factual errors, including blaming global warming for polar bears drowning when they drowned because of a terrible storm. And a judge ruled that the film could still be shown in schools, but with a caveat that teachers must point out the controversial and disputed sections. Now, I know this is a subject you care a lot about, Stefan. I mean, I'll be honest, I've been going along with it because the planet is in a mess. I know from fishing that fish stocks are being depleted, but that's not necessarily a global warming issue, that's a factory farming issue. But global temperatures going down, not up? I mean, that's not what we've been told.
Yeah, I think that having researched quite a lot about this, it seems that what you've got is a vast body of scientific evidence, and there are certain sceptics. There's a whole long list of eminent sceptics who say that they don't quite agree with the debate. Now, there is not one single scientific body across the world that does not agree that climate change is happening, and the vast majority say it's happening that part of the effect is anthropogenic. It's man-made change. Now, the skeptics generally say it's a level of the degree. It's whether or not you can actually do anything about it within the next 200 years. Whether there are specifics which you can actually do anything about. I think that even most of the skeptics, I'd say Christopher Booker is not one of them, but most of the skeptics say, yes, I agree it's happening. I just don't agree with the details.
And when we say it is happening, the planet has warmed and cooled since the dawn of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they're dealing with. It's very difficult to do projections and graphs.
Well, what about your, from what you, because I know you've read massively around the subject, you've done your own research as well. Can you give us what proportion of it is natural warming and cooling, and what proportion of it is man-made? I mean,
God knows, I wish I could. I wish I could. I think no, absolutely not. What I can tell you is that 84% of scientists, there was a poll in 2009 amongst scientists across the world, 84% of scientists believe global warming is happening and humans are responsible for a part of it. Right. However, there's a big rift between the scientists and the public, because as we saw, the public don't believe it. And I think it's a lot to do with science reporting in this country, which is pretty flawed. You know, there's always a flipping polar bear. You know, they love debunking.
Swine,
the story is not, and you know, science confirms a concept. The story is somebody says it's not true. Oh my God, we've been led astray by these ideas. And so the big shift comes in the perception of it, I believe.
Okay. Are you a believer, Michael? Do you think
Well,
we're heading for...
I hate it when they always go, since records began. Records began how long ago?
100 years ago.
100 years at the most. So we've been around, unless you're a creationist, we've been around 40 million more years. So none of us have any real clue as to the mechanics of the planet and how we are affected. Weather is always changing. You know, this country we know better than anyone. Whether it is our fault or not, I simply don't know. What I do know is that the world is probably going to be a better place if we do recycle, if we do cut down on carbon emissions, and we do make these, even if it's not going to change the world's weather. Just do it anyway, because it's the most conscionable thing to do.
I think is I mean, it's
absolutely
got to be a good thing.
Finding better resources, finding cheaper resources.
Riding a motorbike through Mumbai from one end to the other. When you come out the other end on a motorbike, I was completely black, covered in oil, oil and soot, just from the pollution in one city, albeit a big city. And I'm with you. I kind of think, well, the efforts to clean up the planet, they ain't going to do anybody any harm.
Exactly.
Although Booker will say the costs. The cost of the commitment to carbon reduction that the government is loading us as taxpayers with are huge.
But we do know the resources are not going to last forever. We do know oil is going to run out.
Yeah.
We do know we're going to have to find alternatives. We might as well do it now.
Okay. Carol, where do you stand on it? Are you a believer or a non-believer in global warming?
One of the reasons that makes me think it's a bit of a con is that John Prescott is the Council of Europe's, quote, rapporteur, this is his title, on climate change. He's flying around the world lecturing people on global warming, which makes me think it can't be happening because it's too important a subject to have John Prescott involved. But the fact is, you know, this group of scientists, I am a little bit skeptical, I really am. There was a report in the New York Times which said that warm water fish were swimming in the Arctic, and that very soon Russian trawlers would be able to sail through the North Pole. That report was in 1938, and in 1947 the polar ice caps were back as they had been previously. So, you know, I do think it's true, and I'm very sceptical about these scientists, these Anglian scientists. You know, one of the emails said that they can't account for the lack of warming, and they're trying to hide that. And there have been 60 freedom of information requests for them to produce their full data on which they're basing their theories, and they're refusing to produce that data.
It's not good PR at best,
but science has to be verified or falsified for it to be real, and if it's not, well, how can we believe what they say? You know, there were 30 eminent US scientists last year came out and said, yes, certainly what Stefan just said, the planet is in a period of warming, but they said it wasn't man-made. They said it wasn't down to carbon emissions. So, and then you have another group saying it is. You know, if these guys would publish what they say they know, then perhaps we'll be in a better state. You know, and I'm also very suspicious. There's a $1 trillion pound industry around global warming. You know, Al Gore, who frightens the world every few months, is a billionaire now because his involvement in
with the oil super tankers off the coast holding on to their oil to manipulate the price. I mean, we're going to talk about the cost of the environment. An oil-dependent economy, that ain't doing any of us any good financially speaking.
But don't love a bit of a scare story, because that allows them to you know, put more taxes on. So I have a very healthy skepticism, and these scientists have actually confirmed my skepticism. Doesn't mean, you know, there was some data that said up until 1940 the world was very warm. And then it got cold, and in the 70s, I don't know if you remember this, but there was talk about global cooling in the 70s.
Well,
and it's warming up
that's
again.
kind of what Booker is pointing to here. I mean, I'm disappointed because, like a lot of people in Croydon, I was looking forward to it being renamed Croydon-on-Sea, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen just yet. Let's throw it open to you. Any cynics out there as far as global warming is concerned, Kirsty?
First, we've got Lynn. She's on line 1.
Lynn, good morning.
Good morning.